Hello, my name is Muhammad Hanugrah from the Marasam University of Raja Ali Haji. Today I'm going to explain to you about the barriers to cultural communication and cultural learning. Communication can be defined as the exchange of meaning. This involves the sending and receiving of information between a sender and a receiver. This happens not only through the use of words but also through non-verbal factors such as gestures, and facial expression. The message received can be very different from the message was sent. Barriers to intercultural communication includes attitudinal barriers to effective communication. Attitudinal barriers are the barriers that result from the individual's own attitude and assumption that build up over the years based on one's social, economic, and cultural background, and often get reflected in one's day-to-day communication with others. For example, as you can see, globalization means that there is no one business culture everywhere in the world. If they want to do business with me, then they'll have to adapt to my culture. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Well, my example is a bit Indonesian centric. But let us continue. It's impossible to generalize cultures. There are many differences. You can't choose who you work with. Well, you can, but sometimes circumstances will will bring you to different circumstances. If you want today, you'll work with the Chinese, and tomorrow you will work with the Americans, and tomorrow you will work with Japanese. You can't learn all the cultures at the same time. And when you need a board of lists of do's and don'ts, and intercultural sharing just confirms stereotypes. Let's continue. Perception. The fact that people perceive the same thing in different ways is particularly important in intercultural communication. The way we perceive is culturally determined, and the general lack of awareness of this is another barrier to intercultural communication. Stereotypes is a fixed idea or image that many people have a particular type of person, thing, or event, but sometimes it is not true in reality. Generalization and categories are necessary, but when they are too rigid, they can be a barrier to the effective interpretation of a situation. In intercultural communication, it is vital to distinguish between what is part of a person's cultural background and what is part of their personality. Cultural cultural culture shock is precipitated by the anxiety that results from losing all our familiar signs and symbols of social intercourse. These signs or cues include the thousands and one ways in which we orient ourselves to the situations of daily life. Further discussion about culture shock will be in the next chapter. Nonverbal behavior. While language is the primary means of communication, nonverbal behavior also communicates nonverbal patterns, includes gestures, facial expressions, eye contact, body movement, touching, and the use of space and time. Gestures are an obvious source of misunderstanding because they may have different meanings. However, other forms of nonverbal communication may cause particular difficulty, partly because we do not think about them much. Therefore, we may not be able to figure out which is causing the misunderstanding or why we feel uncomfortable. For example, patterns of touching vary a great deal in different cultures. In some cultures, people frequently touch, kiss, and hold hands in public. In other countries, this is not acceptable. In some cultures, people stand very close together when they talk, but in other cultures, they stand relatively far apart. In some cultures, a person who looks down while talking appears dishonest, while in other cultures, looking down shows respect. In some cultures, you are expected to be on time for an appointment, but in other cultures, you are expected to be late. All of these differences have the potential to cause problems. learning cultures is quite difficult in itself because if you do not know the language, you won't know about the culture. Well, you can know about the culture, but you won't have a deep understanding of it. This graph shows the different levels of learning other cultures. And the lowest level is the belief that all people are alike. Then comes the recognition that there are differences and acceptance of the differences, seeing ways of synthesizing the different ways, selecting and making things run smoothly. The process of cultural learning can be helped along by experience, reflection, and training. Intercultural training not only provides information but also develops skills and encourages attitudes to enable people to progress along the cultural learning curve. And that's it. Goodbye.